I was 13 years old when my family moved to the outskirts of a small town in West Virginia. My parents had grown tired of city life, craving peace and quietness, so they bought an old farmhouse at the edge of a dense forest. The house was large, 2 stories, with peeling white paint and a wraparound porch that sagged in places. My mother called it charming. I thought it looked haunted. At first, everything seemed fine. The town was small but friendly, and I was slowly getting used to the long stretches of silence that filled the nights. Back in the city, I had fallen asleep to the sounds of traffic, sirens, and distant voices. Out here, the only noises were the occasional owl hoot and the wind whispering through the trees. It felt empty. Too empty. A first sign that something was wrong came from our dog Scout. He was a German Shepherd, protective and strong, but after we moved he became uneasy. He would stand at the back door, staring out at the woods, growling low in his throat. At night, he would whine and pace, refusing to settle. My parents brushed it off, saying he just needed time to adjust. But I knew better. I had never seen him act like this before. Then, there was the man. I first saw him on a Saturday morning, while helping my dad chop firewood. He appeared at the edge of our property, just standing there, watching. He was tall and thin, with long gray hair that hung in greasy strands past his shoulders. His clothes were tattered, and his face was gaunt, sunken in like he hadn't eaten in days. My dad noticed him too. He set down his axe and called out, "Morning, can I help you with something?" The man just smiled, his lips stretching too wide over yellowed teeth. "Just wanted to see the new folks," he said in a voice that was rough, like he hadn't spoken in a long time. "Name's Cyrus. I live up the way." My dad nodded. "Nice to meet you, Cyrus. We're still settling in." Cyrus's eyes flicked to me. They were small and dark, and something about the way he looked at me made my skin crawl. "Got yourself a strong boy," he said. "That's good. Best to have strength out here. Never know what's lurking." I felt a shiver run down my spine. My dad forced a chuckle. "We'll be fine. Just looking for a quiet life." For Cyrus nodded slowly. "Quiet's good, but it don't stay quiet for long. Things wake up. Always do." With that, he turned and walked back into the woods, disappearing among the trees. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. My dad stood there for a moment, watching the spot where Cyrus had vanished before turning back to me. "Stay away from him," he said, his voice firm. "Don't go near those woods at night." I nodded, but my mind was racing. What did Cyrus mean by things wake up? That night, I understood. I woke up to the sound of scratching at my window. My room was on the 2nd floor. My breath caught in my throat as I turned my head slowly, my body rigid with fear. The scratching came again, deliberate and slow, like nails dragging across the glass. I didn't want to look. Every instinct in my body screamed at me to hide under my covers. But something made me turn my head. There in the pale moonlight was a face pressed against the glass. It was Cyrus. His eyes were wide, unblinking, his mouth stretched into that same unnatural grin. His skin looked even more sunken, almost corpse-like, but what made my stomach lurch was his hands. They weren't pressed against the window like I first thought. They weren't hands at all. They were long, gnarled claws, tapping rhythmically against the glass. Tap, tap, tap. I wanted to scream, but my voice was caught in my throat. I scrambled backward, nearly falling out of bed. My heart pounded as I turned toward my door, ready to run to my parents' room, but then I heard it. His voice. "Let me in, boy. Won't take but a minute." The voice was slow, deliberate, the words dripping with something ancient and wrong. I clenched my eyes shut, willing myself to wake up, to realize this was just a nightmare. But when I opened them again, he was still there, smiling, waiting. Then, as suddenly as he had appeared, he was gone. I barely slept the rest of the night. The next morning, I told my parents what had happened, but they didn't believe me. My dad went outside to check, but there were no footprints, no scratches on the glass, nothing to prove what I had seen was real. But I knew it was real. Scout knew it too. He refused to go near the woods, growling and whining whenever we got too close. My dad started keeping the shotgun by the door. He wouldn't say it, but I knew he was worried. Then, one night, Scout disappeared. I woke up to the sound of barking. Frantic, desperate, I ran to the window, just in time to see Scout bolt into the woods, his tail tucked between his legs. "Scout!" I yelled, but he didn't stop. He was running toward something. Or running from something. I grabbed a flashlight and ran downstairs, my heart hammering in my chest. My dad was already at the door, shotgun in hand. "Stay inside," he ordered, but I didn't listen. I followed him out, my bare feet hitting the cold dirt. The barking stopped. Then, silence. We searched for hours. We never found him. The next morning, just as the sun began to rise, I heard it again. The scratching at my window. This time, I didn't look. I pulled the covers over my head, squeezing my eyes shut, praying for the sun to come up. And then, through the silence, I heard the voice. "Let me in, boy. Won't take but a minute." I never saw Cyrus again after that night. But sometimes, when the wind is just right, I swear I can still hear the tapping on the glass. Moving to a new town was supposed to be a fresh start. My previous rental had been sold and I had no choice but to find another place quickly. When I found this newly built house in a quiet neighborhood, I thought I had hit the jackpot. It was perfect, modern, spacious, and just the right distance from work. I signed the lease immediately, excited to begin this new chapter. But from the moment I moved in, something felt off. I couldn't ignore the chill creeping up my spine. The first time I noticed my neighbor across the street. He was standing on his porch, staring directly at me. He wasn't doing anything, just standing there, hands at his sides, watching. I tried to shake it off, convincing myself he was just curious about the new resident. But the next day, and the day after that, he was still there. No smile, no wave, no acknowledgement. Just watching. I started feeling uneasy. He never seemed to leave his house. Never had visitors, never even checked his mailbox. The only thing he did was watch. I told myself I was being paranoid. Maybe he was lonely, or just socially awkward. But as the days passed, the staring continued, and my discomfort grew into fear. Then one night, things took a turn for the worse. I was in bed, half asleep, when a strange noise jolted me awake. It was a dragging sound, something heavy scraping against the ground outside. My heart pounded as I crept to the window and peeked through the blinds. It was him. My neighbor was outside, dragging a large metal ladder across his lawn. I held my breath as he propped it against the side of his house and climbed up. But instead of going inside through a window, he just stood there at the top, facing my direction. It was as if he was trying to get a better view of me. I ducked down, heart racing. What was he doing? Who just climbs a ladder in the middle of the night to stare at their neighbor's house? My mind went wild with possibilities, none of them good. I grabbed my phone, debating whether to call the police. But what would I say? That my neighbor was watching me? That wasn't the crime. The next morning, as I was leaving for work, I saw him standing at the edge of my driveway. He didn't move, didn't say a word, just stood there as I got into my car. As I pulled away, I dared to glance back. He was still there, still walking. That night, I locked every door and window, double-checking them before going to bed. I tried to sleep, but something kept me on edge. Then, at around 2 a.m., I heard footsteps in my backyard. I shot up in bed, my pulse thundering in my ears. My backyard was fenced in. How had someone gotten inside? Slowly, I crept toward the window and peered out, The yard was dark, but after a moment, I saw it. A shadowy figure standing at the far end, barely visible in the dim light. I stumbled backward, my breath hitching. Was it him? I grabbed my phone and dialed 911. As I waited for the operator to answer, I dared another look. The figure was gone. By the time the police arrived, there was no sign of anyone. I explained everything: the staring, the ladder, the footsteps. But without any real evidence, they couldn't do much. They assured me they'd keep an eye on the area and left. I didn't sleep that night. Over the next few days, I tried to go about my routine, but I was constantly on edge. I started avoiding going outside unless absolutely necessary. I installed extra locks and even bought a security camera for the front door. But nothing prepared me for what happened next. One night, just as I was finally beginning to relax, I heard something thud against the side of my house. It wasn't just a small noise, it was loud, deliberate, and it was coming from the wall outside my bedroom. My stomach twisted in fear. Slowly, I reached for my phone and turned on the camera feed. My blood ran cold. The live footage showed my neighbor, his face inches away from my bedroom window, peering inside. I screamed, stumbling back. The camera caught him flinching before he quickly climbed down. I ran to the window just in time to see him grabbing the ladder and running back to his house. This time, when I called the police, they took me seriously. They arrived within minutes and caught him trying to hide the ladder in his garage. When they questioned him, he refused to speak. His eerie silence more unsettling than anything he could have said. Eventually, they arrested him for trespassing and attempted burglary. Afterward, one of my other neighbors, a woman who lived down the street, came by. She looked pale, nervous. "You're lucky," she said. "What do you mean?" I asked, still shaken. She hesitated, then told me the truth about the man across the street. "He's not supposed to be here. The house he's living in, it's been empty for months." I blinked at her, confused. "What?" "The owner moved out ages ago. That guy? No one knows who he is. He just showed up one day and started living there. We all thought he was some kind of squatter." My breath caught in my throat. "Are you saying—" She nodded grimly. "That man isn't your neighbor." He never was. A sickening realization hit me. He'd been watching me, standing outside my house, creeping around my yard. And all this time, I had assumed he lived across the street. But he didn't, so where did he go when he wasn't watching me?